621. Rogue, pervert. After Urza got dressed and returned, she sat next to the rising fire again, but she was far away from Naruto, staring at him from time to time, as if guarding against a wolf. "Hey," I said, seeing her exaggerated appearance. Naruto couldn't help but want to open his mouth to say something, but when he opened his mouth, Urza shouted at once, "Rogue! Satyr!" The saliva almost spit on the person. Naruto shook his head helplessly, and scolded with a smile, "Isn't she just a little girl? Did you know that I was afraid that you would catch a cold to help you take it off? Who wants you to be kind?" Urza was taken aback for a while, and then she realized that she had overreacted, but she was still very unconvinced by Naruto's ruthless actions before. Even if it was his concern at this time, she felt very contradictory. "Okay, let's have something to eat first." Naruto knew that arguing with children would not yield any results. Only time can make people understand some things. Looking at the innocent Urza, he couldn't help but understand. He smiled and handed her the grilled fish. "I don't want it." Urza was still angry with Naruto. "If you don't want to eat it, I'll eat it." Naruto smiled and came to her on purpose, dangling the roasted and fragrant fish in front of her nose, causing her belly to ooze out. The sound of protests. Urza simply closed her eyes and turned her face away from looking around. After a while, she immediately opened her eyes and ate the wild fruit she picked as if nothing had happened. "Elsa, if you're hungry, you won't be hungry just by eating wild fruits. I also have a roast chicken here." Naruto had already roasted the pheasant on the fire at this time. Urza secretly swallowed her saliva, facing Naruto's deliberate temptation, which aroused her stubborn anger, and she ignored him with a flick of her head. "It's really oily and salty." Naruto frowned secretly. This little girl is really too simple and stubborn. She just killed Gerald who shot her companion. She insisted that she was a ruthless and unjust person who killed her companion. The sky dimmed, and under the dark sky, only the light of the fire was still swaying. Urza was far away from the fire at this time because Naruto had forced her to take off her clothes. At night, the wind on the seaside was very cold, plus Urza was soaked by the seawater before, and she fought all night last night. It is really not easy for a child to persist until now. At this time, she was tired and cold, and she sneezed immediately when the sea breeze blew. Naruto hurriedly walked over and put the Yushin robe that he had picked up earlier on her. Urza wanted to struggle not to, but Naruto's arms seemed to restrain her like iron pincers. In the end, after struggling a few times, she calmed down, but she turned her head away from looking at him. "What a stubborn and cute girl. Go to the fire and rest for a night, otherwise it's not good to catch a cold," Naruto said aloud. Urza sat there unresponsive. Naruto shook his head. Regardless of whether she would resist or not, he hugged her tender body with a swipe, and appeared by the fire and pressed her on his lap. "Hey, what are you doing, you rascal?" Urza then struggled to react. Naruto frowned and said, "Don't move. Just sleep like this." He pressed Urza's body hard against his lap and let her rest her head on his thigh. Facing the firelight, Urza's struggling body suddenly quieted down. The fire is so warm. But she felt that lying on Naruto's lap like this, the temperature that came from seemed to put her whole body in one Izumi. It was Naruto who secretly warmed her body with a hint of fire magic. Urza slowly closed her eyes. After being tired for so long, she could finally take a good rest. That night, Naruto sat by the fire like this, looking up at the sky full of stars, listening to Urza's intermittent ravings. Early the next morning, Urza woke up faintly, only to find that she was lying on Naruto's body and slept. She hurriedly stood up and left Naruto's body. Have you been sitting here last night?" she asked. Although Naruto didn't sleep at night, he meditated instead, so when Urza woke up, he woke up immediately and nodded. When Urza heard this, she couldn't help but be silent for a while, and then said with a straight face, "Don't think that you will cover up the guilt of killing your companion by doing this. I will not forgive you so easily." Naruto was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and laughed. "Urza, I didn't say I need your forgiveness. and I don't think that's the wrong thing to do. Urza originally thought that Naruto would admit her mistake, so she could just forgive him. After all, he held himself in the wind last night, but he didn't expect this guy to be so hateful and wrong. I still don't know how to repent. Okay, how can there be such a big resentment from a child's family? Although Gerald shares our troubles and sorrows with us, his final actions have violated the name of a companion. At the moment when he threatened me with his companion's life, I have decided that he is the enemy, and I will never show mercy to the enemy. Naruto said sternly, we will search here for a few days, and if we can't find any clues, leave here. But we should persuade him to come back. He used to be a partner after all. Seeing his partner fall into the darkness, we should guide him back. As soon as Urza heard this, she immediately argued with Naruto excitedly. Naruto shook his head slightly, not to say more. Elsa is too simple, and she is still thinking. It is useless to say more. I can only hope that she will understand in the future. Humph, you ruthless fellow, Urza muttered angrily when he saw that he didn't bother arguing with her. In the next time, the two checked around the island, trying to find any clues, but during the period, Urza was stunned with Naruto, ignoring him like a pissed-off child. Well, but she seems to be a child. 622. Go to Fairy Tale. After 3 days, Naruto finally decided to leave the island. Instead of wasting time here, he might as well go to other places to find clues. The disappearance of Gerald's body and the boat crew was very abnormal, but there was nothing to be done. The next life was the most important thing. On this day, Naruto finally got on a boat and left with Urza. Although Urza had been sitting on the other side of the boat along the way, not getting close to Naruto, her excited expression was still uncontrollable. Occasionally, when she looked at Naruto, she was also full of hope and joy. Seeing Urza like this, Naruto was also sincerely happy for her. The boat was very small, but the two of them crossed the sea that night to reach the pier on the shore. Fortunately, there were no strong winds or waves along the way. After the two reached the land safely, Elsa said she was going to Fairy Tale, where Grandpa Rob used to stay. Before going to Fairy Tale, Naruto planned to part with Urza. Because he asked Wendy to rob Lu before, now it's time to get her back. When she and Urza proposed to separate actions, Urza was obviously shocked. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end she didn't say anything, and finally turned her head and turned into a light hum. I can also go by myself. Fairy Tale. Naruto smiled slightly, but he was still uneasy about her safety along the way. After she left, he quietly separated a Mokudan, wood-style clone and quietly followed her to protect her along the way. And his body went to the small village where Robin Lu was. It is estimated that Wendy has been waiting. I haven't helped her find Tianlong yet. However, when I thought about how inconvenient it would be to travel around with a 3 or 4-year-old kid, Naruto still prefers the feeling of being alone. When he came to the small village where Robin Lu was located, Naruto found that the original small house where Robin Lu was located was gone, replaced by a large building with a huge sign standing on it, which looked like Cat's Demon Cat's Nest. Naruto looked at the huge guild and couldn't help being a little surprised. Wasn't this Robin Lu's home originally? How did it become a guild? Did they move away? This time, he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. He walked quickly to the door of the guild, but found that many people in the guild were drinking and chatting, which was very lively. However, looking at these people, Naruto always felt that something was wrong. Suddenly, he saw a petite figure sitting at a table in the hall, with a pair of small hands supporting his chin, listening to the speeches of several guild members next to him, with a novel look on his face, looking very happy. Wendy. Unexpectedly, she actually joined the guild. Naruto walked in, and an old voice came. Guest, you are finally here. Everyone looked at the door, and a soft whistle sounded in surprise, followed by Wendy's petite body rushing past Lao and rushing into his arms. Brother Naruto, you're finally here. I miss you so much. I saw Wendy's small hands tightly grasping Naruto's body. Her big black and white eyes were about to cry, slightly biting his lower lip. He finally couldn't help crying out, bursting out all the thoughts of the past few days. Wendy, it looks like you're doing pretty well here. Naruto put out his hand and touched her head dotingly. Woo, I'm not good at all without big brother Naruto here. Wendy raised her head and cried. The mouth is so sweet. Naruto couldn't help laughing, reached out and squeezed her chubby little face, wiping the snot and tears on her face. At this time, the owner of the old voice came to Naruto. It was Robin Liu. He looked at Naruto and smiled. Wendy, she likes guilds very much, so I set up a guild for her. Here she will, it's growing well. Don't worry. Naruto nodded and looked around at the people around. All of them looked at Wendy with love and doting. It seems that Wendy is really doing well here. In that case, let her grow up in the guild first. After all, she is only a 3 or 4-year-old child, so it's not good to follow her around. Thinking of this, Naruto already has a calculus in his heart. Next, after chatting with Robin Liu in the guild for a while, Naruto planned to say goodbye and leave, but Wendy always held his hand and didn't let go. He had no choice but to stay here for a few days. Here with Wendy for 3 days. During these 3 days, Naruto's Mokuten wood-style clone had already completed the task and escorted Urza to Fairy Tail. He also knew the news from the clone. Knowing the exact location of Fairy Tail, I plan to find Urza in a few days. He was thinking about which guild he should join. Wendy was in Demon Cat's Nest, Elsa in Fairy Tail, and there were familiar people on both sides. It was a dilemma. However, he finally decided to join Fairy Tail. According to the news from the clone, Fairy Tail's strength is one of the best in the local area. In order to see more powerful wizards, he must also join. When parting, Wendy was reluctant to pull Naruto, and with tears on her face, she stared at him pitifully. Naruto finally coaxed her for a long time to persuade her, and promised to come to see him every once in a while. Wendy just gave up, and slowly released the little hand that was holding Naruto's clothes tightly. After throwing off Wendy's little oil bottle, Naruto could not help but heave a sigh of relief and set off on the road alone. If you take Wendy with you, your future actions will not be so easy. With a child, you have to take care of it everywhere, and then you won't have time to practice and explore. There are still many places in this world waiting to be developed by myself, and many powerful opponents waiting to be challenged by myself. Only in battles again and again can we comprehend the true meaning of the power of this world, and we can take our strength to a higher level. 623. Arrive at the destination. The Fairy Tail Guild is located in the east of the Fury Kingdom, a place called Magnolia with a population of 60,000. The address of the guild is located just after the Cathedral of Cardia, and you will arrive at the end along the street. It was the first time Naruto came to such a big city, and for the first time felt the strong magical atmosphere of the other world. This is indeed a place where magic is highly developed. Magic is everywhere in the whole city. Naruto glanced at it, and almost even street jugglers have magic. Even ordinary shop owners have magic power. Here, there are indeed many talents, and magic is prevalent. Naruto was full of anticipation. He decided to join Fairy Tail first to get acquainted with the city. On the way to the guild, Naruto went to a barber shop and arranged the long hair into the original short hair style. Naruto walked all the way to the guild along the street. Naruto found that there were many shops selling related magic items along the street. There are also headsets that play music, and wands that can use some small magic. Naruto thought these things were very novel, and he observed them in the store for a long time, until the store owner found out that he only saw it and couldn't buy it, and then drove him out with a stinky face. The magical civilization in this world varies greatly from region to region. In the north, magical civilization is far less prosperous than here. It seems that this trip is the right one. Naruto smiled. In front, finally, is the Fairy Tail Guild. At the main gate, one looks very beautiful, a formal gate, with a fairy-like sign, which is full of momentum. However, when he stepped into the Fairy Tail Guild Hall for the first time, he saw a messy scene. Some adults were drinking and chatting, talking about various topics in the alcoholic atmosphere, and all the jokes that were passed to Naruto's ears were inappropriate for children. With the ambiguous low laugh of the adults, the children around were also very noisy. Chasing, swearing, scolding, it's like a children's playground. What a vibrant guild, Naruto murmured. At this moment, he suddenly saw two familiar figures, and his expression couldn't help but be overjoyed. But then he frowned again, a look of anger flashing in his eyes. It turned out that in a corner of the guild hall, a Yugi-haired girl was sitting there alone, not saying a word, and she was wearing a suit of armor. Is this Urza? In front of Urza, a shirtless teenager was looking at her with a defiant expression, and after calling her a few times and getting no response, he suddenly kicked her. Although this may have been a fight between children, Naruto was still very angry when he saw Urza being bullied. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of her almost instantly, stretched out one of his hands, he immediately grabbed the opponent's ankle. Immediately afterwards, with a slight force on his arm, he directly threw the opponent out. Only then did the two see each other's faces clearly. Gray. Naruto. Boom. Gray bumped into another table. After Naruto was surprised, he stretched out his hand and shook it in front of the stunned Urza. Although you are new here, you can't be bullied like that. He smiled and patted her shoulder. Go beat him. Naruto nodded at her. Urza was stunned for a while, and then she came back to her senses. While her eyes were slightly happy, her expression immediately turned cold. He actually parted ways with him that day. This bastard guy. Don't you know you're going to be dangerous along the way? Although it was very smooth to get here, but this guy actually left himself to do other things, which is really unforgivable. You're here. In the end, Elsa just nodded lightly at him and said, I will handle my affairs myself. Then, she turned her head and suddenly walked to the side of Gray who was lying on the ground, and suddenly there was a loud cracking sound. Urza clapped her hands and snorted coldly and left. Looking at Gray again, she was lying on the ground dying, with a bruised nose and a swollen face, covered in blood hurt. Okay, so scary. The other people around who had been following Gray couldn't help but take a deep breath. They thought that a taciturn girl like Urza would be the type to be bullied. I didn't expect this blonde kid to say a few words, and this guy broke out. Also beat Gray so badly. In fact, Urza didn't even know why she suddenly hit people. Maybe she heard Naruto's words, or maybe she didn't want to lose face in front of Naruto. By the way, who is that blonde boy? He's so handsome, a girl who was drinking immediately called out with love in her eyes. This guy is not a member of our union. A boy next to her said angrily. Looking at him carrying a burden, is it someone from outside? Another guessed. I think I heard Gray call his name, Naruto, Naruto. Just when there was a lot of discussion, Naruto walked up to Gray, squatted down and said with a smile, Gray, it's been a long time, I didn't expect you to join Fairy Tail. You seem to be hanging around here all this time. Not bad. He even bullied Urza. There was a tinge of danger in his voice. This guy Gray, Naruto didn't have a good impression of him. To describe him in a few simple words, he was a hot-blooded young man who had just learned a little magic at the time, so he rushed to find Daliola. As a result, Ulu almost died, and now he can only stay in the extremely cold place and cannot come out. It can be said that Naruto really wants to beat him up now. However, he still didn't do it after all. Maybe it was because Urza had beaten him before, which made Naruto temporarily let him go. Naruto, Naruto, long time no see. Hearing Naruto's words, Gray, with a bruised nose and a swollen face, said with a slight cold sweat on his forehead. 624. Second Gray. In the hall, Gray and Naruto were sitting at the table facing each other. Naruto, Ulu, she used absolute freeze, didn't she already? Gray asked him eagerly. It can be said that everything at that time was caused by him. If he hadn't had a fever to challenge Dalio, everyone would not have been in such a situation. Therefore, he has always deeply regretted it, and felt extremely tormented in his heart. Seeing Naruto, who disappeared with Ulu, suddenly appeared in front of him. At this moment he was extremely excited. Naruto looked at him, shook his head and said lightly, "Ulu is not dead, he is still alive and well." "Really? Are you telling the truth?" When Gray heard this amazing news, he jumped up in surprise, stretched out his hand and grabbed Naruto's clothes tightly, and asked loudly, "Tell me now. Where is she? I'm going to see her." Naruto also understood Gray's mood, but because of that incident, he was still a little unhappy with this secondate youth. He gently pulled Gray's hands away and said lightly, "I won't let you go to her now, and you can't go there either." "Why?" Gray immediately exclaimed excitedly. "You are not eligible now." Gray squeezed his fist tightly, staring at Naruto. "Okay, I won't tell you more. Today I'm here to join Fairy Tail. I'll talk about these things next time." Naruto waved his hand. "Damn, you bastard." Seeing that Naruto was so tugged, Gray was so ignorant of his own feelings, he immediately became furious, and with a wave of his hands, he immediately became furious. As soon as Naruto turned around, there was a wave of magic power behind him. The others in the hall immediately exclaimed, "It's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight. Gray is going to fight that blonde boy. Looks like this blonde kid pissed off Gray. It's going to be bad." "I can't see it." Gray seemed to be thrown away by him just now. Gray's strength is very strong. At this time, Gray has already shot. Be careful," a female voice had already screamed, trying to remind Naruto, who turned around. An ice magic blasted out in Gray's hands. Ice Shape Magic Hammer Soldier. In the hall, a huge ice hammer slammed down on Naruto on the spot. The place was freezing cold. Everyone was shocked. "Hey, Gray, you're going too far. Using such a trick will seriously injure him. Blonde boy, get out of the way." Just as the ice hammer on Naruto's head fell ruthlessly, and everyone exclaimed in exclamation, Naruto's eyes flashed, and under the incredible gaze of everyone, he stretched out a left hand without looking back. "Make a fist. Hit hard up." Boom. The next moment, an incredible scene appeared in the eyes of everyone. Naruto only punched and stopped the huge ice hammer that was pressing on his head. The fist collided with the ice hammer, and there was a bang. The ice hammer can no longer fall. And Naruto, his body was motionless, his face was expressionless, and then, the whole big ice hammer suddenly shattered into a piece of ice slag, scattered all over the place. "Whoa!" Everyone immediately shouted, and the simplified words in this scene were unbelievable. They all opened their mouths wide, and their chins almost fell to the ground. "No way! What did this guy do? He broke Gray's magic with one punch. This must be an illusion. He must have used magic. Otherwise, how could it be so strong? Just use his fist to break up the opponent's magic." The crowd started to discuss with a bang, looking at Naruto as if they were looking at a monster. At this time, Naruto slowly turned around, looked at Gray, who was looking at him in disbelief, and suddenly said, "You are still so impulsive, Gray." When Gray heard the words, he subconsciously took a half step back. However, at this moment, Naruto's figure suddenly flashed, and the next moment, suddenly appeared in front of Gray, so fast that everyone in the hall could hardly react. As soon as Gray saw Naruto's movements, Naruto had already stretched out his hand, but he couldn't avoid it when he wanted to react. The next moment, Naruto directly grabbed his neck and slammed him against the wall of the hall with a bang. Gray was instantly shocked, his head was dizzy, and Naruto's cold voice sounded in his ear. "Do you know how much trouble your impulses will cause others? You know, because of your impulsive, Ulu has to endure 10 years of loneliness. You know, because of your impulse, you will go to your head in battle." Boom. Naruto handed out another punch and smashed him in the stomach. This blow almost knocked out a crack in the wall that Gray was leaning against. Graydon screamed in pain and nearly passed out. Others screamed in surprise, and things would change like this. I thought that Gray's magic would hurt this blonde boy, but they didn't want this guy to stop shooting. When he shot, he killed Gray in seconds. Now they couldn't help but worry about Gray's safety. Because they can see that there seems to be some kind of contradiction between Gray and Naruto. If this goes on, they don't know what will happen. However, Naruto, who punched Gray, gently released his hand, let his body slowly fall to the corner of the wall, turned around and snorted coldly, "When will you seriously think about your own shortcomings? I will let him go see Ulu." After he finished speaking, he walked to the other side of the hall, where a little old man was standing on the counter, his eyes shining brightly at him. Wow, so handsome. This handsome blonde guy actually abused Gray. How relieved. The drinking girl couldn't help cheering. I've decided, I want to find him as a boyfriend. Hey, Kana, Gray is also a wizard of fairy tale after all. How can you cheer for outsiders? What does it matter? I want him to be my boyfriend anyway. Thinking of such a cool guy drinking with me, how romantic it would be. A few people around were sweating profusely. 625. Find a quest. At this time, Elsa was at another door, looking at Naruto's back. A look of admiration flashed on her face. Naruto's strength is still so strong, just like when he led everyone to resist together, always can shock people. However, after hearing Kana's voice from a distance, her face sank again. This guy has attracted the attention of other girls so quickly. Hateful. After Naruto finished teaching Gray, he came to the old man in front of everyone's eyes. It was not until this time that everyone reacted, and the president was actually there. Just now, everyone in the hall was attracted by Naruto and Gray, which caused even the president to appear without realizing it. At this moment, seeing Naruto walking towards the president, everyone couldn't help but hold their breath. Fairy Tail's third-generation president, Makarov. He is one of the top 10 magic guides, strong and unfathomable. Naruto quickly felt his powerful magic power and the powerful momentum hidden in his body. Son, your ability is good. Makarov asked suddenly. It looks like you and Gray know each other. Naruto nodded. He and I are considered brothers and sisters. I'm going to join Fairy Tail now. Makarov was stunned for a moment, and a look of surprise flashed on his face. I didn't expect you to have such a relationship. Since you and Gray are both brothers from the same sect, I will allow you to join Fairy Tail. It will be our one in the future. I'm a member of the staff, but I still hope you can get along well with Gray. Quote. Naruto nodded. The president didn't expect to talk so easily, and with Gray, he was just a little unhappy this time. After all, he was the first person he knew when he came to this world. Lu let out a few breaths. In that case, go and register first. Welcome to Fairy Tail. Makarov laughed. Naruto also smiled slightly, and following his instructions, he came to the registration office, and asked people to press the seal of Fairy Tail on his small arm. From now on, Naruto is also a member of Fairy Tail. The crowd gathered around and kept asking about 8 trigrams around him. Urza stood on the side from a distance, watching Naruto surrounded by everyone. Very popular, she couldn't help but pouted, turned and left the hall. Naruto noticed Urza's departure, and after frowning slightly, he pushed everyone away and walked out of the guild. In a mountain forest not far from the guild, on the edge of a slowly flowing river, a girl with long red hair sat quietly on a stone and threw the small stones in her hand into the water one by one. At this time, Naruto's figure appeared beside her and suddenly said, Urza, why are you here alone? Elsa's body trembled slightly, and the next moment she hurriedly raised her head. Seeing Naruto coming, she couldn't help but snorted, why are you here? Seeing her wearing armor, Naruto couldn't help frowning slightly and asked, Urza, I haven't seen you for a few days, why are you wearing armor? I think it's better for little girls to wear skirts. Don't worry about it, I like it. Elsa was slightly startled, then shook her head and said, I'm different from you, you can be welcomed by everyone as soon as you join the guild, and some girls like it, but I can't do it. Quote. Hearing this, Naruto frowned even more. Urza, it seems that she still can't let go of what happened in the Tower of Paradise. Compared with her, she only went in to investigate. To be honest, she couldn't experience them at that time with her own ability of difficulty. And Urza is different. Being treated like that at a young age will inevitably cause shadows on the psychological side, right? Seeing her sitting there in armor, with her head down and not speaking, as if she was abandoned by the world, Naruto couldn't help feeling pity in his heart. Alusha, he gently advised, you should integrate into everyone. Only in this way can you grow. Indulging in the past will only make you more and more withdrawn. I believe you are a strong girl, you can definitely write. Hearing Naruto's words, Elsa's body trembled slightly. She raised her head to look at him, then lowered her head. A warm current flowed in her heart, the expression on her face eased a lot, and nodded. I got it, I'm not that vulnerable. After speaking, she stood up and left the river bank. Next, Naruto rented a house in this town and just spent the remaining money. After 3 days of work and everything, Naruto was free to go to the guild's hall to pick up tasks. Naruto joins the guild not for fun. The most important reason is to get in touch with the powerful forces of this world, and accepting quests is the best way to understand this information. Looking up in front of the task bar, Naruto filtered the past task by task. Finding Earl Marshall, S. Lost Pet Cat 50,000 J. Escort Miss Ladis, the daughter of a wealthy businessman, to the town of Karl a prize of 100,000 J. Collect the traces of the evil wizard Raphael a prize of 200,000 J. Destroy the Orient Kura thieves bonus 50 WJ. Looking at the task list on the bulletin board, Naruto is looking for the most expensive tasks. The previous ones are not too challenging for him, and he is eager to encounter some challenging tasks. However, just as he was looking for a satisfactory task, a voice suddenly came from the side. Hello. Listen to the voice, it is a girl, and it is clear and beautiful. Naruto turned his head and saw a girl in a long plaid dress standing there with a friendly smile. Hello. Naruto also responded with a smile. When the other party saw it, her face was obviously Yuhi, and then she hesitated. Naruto, are you free now? Can you drink with me? My name is Kana Albero. Accept. Naruto listened for a while. Drinking. Is it bad to drink at such a young age? He said, I'm sorry I have a task to do now. 626. Do the mission. When Kana heard the words, she immediately went down with a disappointed expression on her face. She sat back in the hall and started to pour the wine glass. Naruto shook his head and continued to search for the mission. At this time, he suddenly saw the task with the highest prize money on the task board: help Duke Laska to hunt down the magic trio. The bonus is 2 million J. The difficulty of the task is 4 stars. Task reminder. It is best to go in a team of 3 or more. The 3 are currently in a small town not far to the west. Basic information of the mission personnel. A wind magician, good at the binding magic of the wind. 1 is a dress-up magician who is good at attacking with various huge weapons, and the other is an auxiliary magician who can strengthen the abilities of the other 2. The combination of these 3 people is indeed an existence that is difficult for ordinary people to resist. There are attacks, restraints, and assistance. It's no wonder that such a trio needs a reward of 200 WJ. After reading it, Naruto decisively tore it off and took it on his body. This task, he took it. At this time, among the people in the hall who were drinking and chatting, some people saw Naruto's actions, and seeing that he had just come to the guild to do a task, he couldn't help but laugh and call Guy. Naruto, I didn't expect you to be so diligent. Show us what quest you've taken. Naruto smiled lightly, and a mage beside him suddenly said, Naruto took over the 200WJ mission book. What? Naruto actually took on such a difficult task. Everyone immediately became agitated, and a few people rushed to check the information on the task board, only to see that the task of chasing down the magic trio had disappeared. Hey, Naruto, can you do it alone? That mission is very difficult. If you don't reach S rank, you probably won't be able to complete it. Someone shouted worriedly. Naruto turned around and smiled. Thank you for your concern, I will be back soon. Of course he doesn't have to be afraid. This kind of task is not difficult for him at all. If this task is not the one with the highest bonus here, he will not tear it off. However, everyone's concern for him also made him feel that the people in this guild are still full of humanity, and he felt very satisfied. With a slight smile, Naruto quickly stepped out of the guild gate and out of everyone's sight. At this moment, not far in front of the gate, a figure was standing there, blocking Naruto's way. Back has long red Yuhi-colored hair, wearing silver-gray armor, and his face is expressionless. It's Urza. Naruto, I'm going to. Urza suddenly reached out and blocked his way. Naruto was stunned. I didn't expect that Urza would suddenly stop me. This is difficult. With Urza's current ability, it is obviously not enough to fight against other mages. If you bring her, it is equivalent to bringing her. Oil bottle. He intends to make a quick decision this time, and if he brings Urza, it will definitely be affected. This mission is very dangerous, you can't participate right now, Naruto said. I'm going. Urza turned around and looked at him seriously. Naruto covered his forehead in distress. Do you know that you will cause trouble if you go? When Urza heard this, a look of unwillingness flashed across her face, and she said stubbornly, I'm very strong. I won't cause trouble for you. Naruto was speechless after hearing this for a long time. Looking at her looked like she was about to jump off the building if she didn't agree. He had no choice but to nod. Okay, you are allowed to go with me on this mission, but you have to obey me in everything. Command. Urza just nodded, a surprise flashed across her face. In this way, Naruto took her to prepare some salutes and planned to set off immediately. On the train station, Naruto and Urza were waiting for the car to come. Urza held her own salute and stood behind Naruto without saying a word. Urza, why do you have to come with me? Naruto asked. Urza was stunned for a moment, and then said lightly, I also want to experience it, and I also want to become stronger. Being stronger? Then why are you getting stronger? Naruto turned his head and stared at her like a torch. Elsa couldn't help but froze for a while. She opened her mouth, a trace of confusion flashed on her face, and then a firm look appeared in her eyes again, saying, in order to survive. In order to protect the hard-won freedom now. Ha ha ha. Naruto laughed happily after hearing this. Urza, to have such an idea, it seems that you have really grown up. HMPH, you seem to be very mature. She curled her lips and turned her head to ignore him. She was still a little unhappy. This guy always looks like he is very mature and makes decisions at will. He always thinks that he is right, and everyone else is like a child in his eyes. Naruto laughed. At this time, the train finally came. The two got into the car and sat opposite each other in the carriage. There were 2 drinks on the table in front of them, but Urza didn't move. Seeing her sitting on the chair in an iron helmet, Naruto couldn't help but be speechless and asked, Urza, should you take off your iron helmet? It's not good for a girl to always dress like this. Huh. Elsa raised her head when she heard the words. She didn't know what to think. A hint of Yuhi dizzy appeared on her face, and then she hummed softly, if you dare to do such a thing again, I will no longer be polite. Naruto was a little confused when he heard it. This girl, what she said was a little inexplicable. As everyone knows, Naruto's inadvertent words just now reminded Urza of the scene of forcibly taking off her clothes on the beach that day. Urza therefore scolded him in her heart for a long time. There will be this reaction. Fortunately, Naruto understood after a moment's stunned moment. He couldn't help but rubbed his nose and laughed dryly, and said, You're not getting wet now. Heard this, her face was a big Yuhi again, and she snorted coldly and ignored him again. This guy is really a pervert and a hooligan. Hateful and abominable. 627. Poison. In this cold war-like environment, the two finally reached their destination. The city is called Demacia. It is an ancient and quiet town. It is backed by the mountains and has a good environment. There are also several famous wizards in the town, but they are all retired now and there is no trade union. Therefore, the Duke of Raska, who lives in this small town, dispatched the task to the neighboring fairy tale guild. Following the address route in the mission book, the two of Naruto finally arrived at the luxurious manor on the west side of the town. The manor was very big, and Naruto and the two passed through the gate and finally saw the Duke in the magnificent hall under the guidance of the guards. The short, plump figure and the oddly curvy hairstyle looked a little funny. This is the mission client this time. After Naruto and the two met him, he was also taken aback, because he didn't expect that the two children were actually accepting the task. Are you sure you are the wizards of fairy tale? Duke Laska asked in disbelief. Naruto pulled up his sleeves, revealing the seal on his arm. It's true, but your age is also. The face of his doubts, Naruto smiled faintly. Please believe in our ability. If I don't have the determination and ability to complete the task, I will not take it, and even if the task fails, there is no loss to you, right? Well, that's true. The Duke laughed when he heard the words. Well, let's take a rest for the night with me. The three guys are still in the city. You rest and prepare for tomorrow before moving on. Go. No, tell us their specific location. We'll go there now. Naruto said. Huh, in such a hurry. The Duke couldn't help being surprised. Yeah, after the mission is completed, we have to go back before dark. Naruto said. Duke. An underground casino in a small town. This is the only place that is very noisy in this quiet town, where people and snakes are mixed, and all kinds of people are playing here. Smoke lingered and the lights dimmed. Naruto brought Ursha to the door of the basement, and the noise and smoky smoke came out. He frowned and said to Ursha, "You should wait for me outside. I cleaned up the three come out right after a guy." He has already sensed the magical aura of the three, and it is not very strong, but it is definitely not something that the current Urza can deal with. No, I'm going. This time I'm here to perform a mission. Urza shouted stubbornly. After she finished speaking, she stretched out her little hand, and a flash of light flashed in her hand. In her hands. Dress up magic. I have to do more tasks now and use the rewards to build weapons, so I have to contribute to this task, otherwise I will be embarrassed to share the bonus with you. She said stubbornly. After Naruto listened, he nodded slightly. If that's the case, I'll let you in this time. In the basement, there was a lot of noise. When Naruto's two 10-year-old children entered the entrance, not many people noticed at all, and when they pushed the crowd away to find the three wizards, everyone's face was full. Looking at them curiously. Hey, the two little guys are coming to play too. A young man who looked sloppy walked up to the two of Naruto and laughed. Naruto looked up at him and said lightly, "Please let me go." Yo, children are quite squeamish. It's dangerous to play in this kind of place, didn't your parents tell you? The young man didn't let go, but faced them with a flat smile. Naruto and Urza both frowned. At this time, they caught a glimpse of three magicians playing poker at the gambling table, one tall and one short, and the other was a very enchanting woman. These three are exactly the goals this time. Get out of the way. Naruto pointed at the young man in front of him and suddenly said coldly. The young man was stunned for a moment, and then he noticed that on Naruto's raised arm, the seal of the fairy tale protruding from the cuff. Sorcerer! The young man exclaimed, and hurriedly dodged to the side, his body trembling and dodging far away. Mage is an extremely powerful existence. Even a child is not something that ordinary people like him can deal with. It was really thrilling just now. If it wasn't for my sharp eyes, it might be an extremely tragic end now. The young man thought to himself. However, because of the exclamations of the youth, the three magicians who were having fun had already noticed Naruto and Urza, and they couldn't help but stop to continue playing, and the three of them walked towards Naruto. Seeing this, Urza immediately clenched the weapon in her hand vigilantly. The other party got closer and closer, and there was also an invisible momentum emitting between them, and a breeze rose out of thin air, and everyone was a little unclear. However, when the three of them came to Naruto, they didn't stop, but walked right past them. Naruto was stunned for a moment. When he turned his head to look, the three had already reached the door of the basement, and soon disappeared there. Come on. Naruto pulled Urza up, and the two immediately rushed out of the basement. This is just right, it seems that these three people do not want to fight here. The three dashed down the street at high speed, with Naruto and Urza following closely behind. Soon, everyone arrived at an open space outside the town. The three of them stopped, turned around, and looked at Naruto with interest. These two children are really brave. Did they accept the task to arrest us? The tall, thin guy laughed. I guess so, but it's too underestimated, isn't it? The squat guy cried. Then, another enchanting voice also sounded. Mother, I hate pretty girls the most. Fall down for me. Boom. Urza, who was beside Naruto, suddenly felt dizzy and sat on the ground with a thud. Naruto Urza just opened her mouth to say something, and immediately passed out on the ground. Naruto couldn't help but be startled, and suddenly he also felt a dizzy feeling in his head, and the magic power in his body turned violently, and this feeling of weakness was immediately ruled out. It's poison. Unexpectedly, these three guys are still poisonous. If it weren't for the strong magic power in his body, and his body was strong enough, he might have fallen like Urza. What exactly is going on? Did the three of them unknowingly poison the two of them just now? This is impossible. Naruto believed in his own perception. After seeing them, he was always on guard. If they used the poison when they walked past them, they would have underestimated their own strength. And he also believed that he was definitely not poisoned at that time. Their actions can never hide their perception. But what about this poison? You are really despicable. Since you can't figure it out for a while, then kill them first. Naruto said coldly. Then, he stretched out his hand to slightly hand seal, and the next moment a clone appeared beside him, hugging Urza's body and dodging to the side. Missing body, do you know how to use this kind of magic? You little brat, doesn't look easy. The three people on the opposite side could not help but say in surprise when they saw this scene. 628. Escape. When did you get poisoned? Naruto stepped forward and asked in a cold voice. Now that Urza has a Mokuden wood-style clone to take care of her, she seems to have a quick decision to take down these guys quickly. Ha ha ha, we didn't poison. The tall and thin man smiled proudly. Really, since you don't tell the truth, then I'm welcome. After Naruto finished speaking, he rushed up. Humph. How much power do you have when you use the missing body to separate the power? It's just wishful thinking to deal with the three of us. The short and fat man said disdainfully. He stretched out his arm, and Naruto immediately felt himself there is a sticky feeling around his body, as if there is a strong wind blocking his movements. Wind-bound. Naruto's movements were noticeably slower. At this time, the tall man suddenly raised his hand, and after a flash of light, a giant sword more than 10 meters long and 1 meter wide was held in his hand, and at the same time, the enchanting woman's arm with a slight wave of his arm, Naruto suddenly felt that the blockage he was receiving was getting bigger and bigger. Boom. At this moment, the giant sword in the tall man's hand slammed down towards where Naruto was. The speed was so fast and the strength was so fierce that it immediately smashed Naruto and his place into a deep ravine. The dust was flying everywhere, and Naruto was nowhere to be seen. However, just when the tall man wanted to take back the giant sword in his hand, he lifted it hard, but found that it didn't move at all, as if it was clamped by something. A gust of wind blew, and the smoke scattered in all directions, revealing Naruto's figure under the giant sword. I saw the tenacity of his grip on the giant sword with one hand, and the palm and the giant sword were sealed together by a piece of ice. The magic of ice. The tall man exclaimed. Naruto grinned. Although he caught the opponent's giant sword with his bare hands, the huge impact still smashed the ground under his feet. Standing in the pit, his magic power surged out. I want to freeze all of you. Naruto shouted. The next moment, a strong cold air suddenly appeared on his arm, and this cold air climbed all the way along the giant sword to the tall man in an instant. Let go. cried the enchanting woman who used auxiliary magic next to her. In a hurry, the tall man quickly let go of his hand and jumped back. After a closer look, he could see that the giant sword was completely frozen in ice and slammed to the ground with a bang. Naruto jumped out of the pit, stepped on the huge block of ice, and looked at them coldly. The cold air on his body caused the surrounding temperature to drop by more than 10 degrees. What a powerful magic power! What's going on with this guy? He obviously used the missing body, but his magic power level is still so strong. The tall man said with lingering fears. If he hadn't escaped quickly, he would have already been killed with the giant sword. Frozen in. It's hard to deal with. Shall we withdraw? The short man asked cautiously. The tall man and the enchanting woman looked at each other and nodded suddenly. The next moment, the three of them used magic at the same time. Wind bound. Attack strengthened. Speed strengthened. Transformation, great hammer of the sky. Naruto sank under his feet, and there was an invisible wind entangling him around him. He raised his head, and a huge black shadow fell on the top of his head. It's a massive hammer. The same trick is ineffective for me. Naruto curled his lips in disdain. The next moment, the wind restraint around him suddenly disappeared, his body flashed back slightly, and he easily avoided the big one. Hammer attack. Wind magic. He will too. Boom. The big hammer fell in the air, the ground on the spot burst open with a bang, and another big pit appeared, and the dust flew up in the sky, obscuring Naruto's sight. When the dust settled, Naruto had already lost the three figures in front of Naruto's eyes. Ran away. Naruto frowned slightly, disbanded the clone, and came to the unconscious Urza. I checked the magic operation in her body, and there was no serious problem. This poison is just a stunned medicine, but it is not fatal. A green light appeared between his palms, pressing on her head. Medical ninjutsu. Running with magic power, Naruto found that the effect was even better than chakra. After a while, Urza woke up faintly. She looked around blankly and found that the ground was in a mess, exclaimed and hurriedly sat up and asked Naruto, "What happened just now?" Naruto told her everything one by one. After listening, Urza could not help but clenched her fists and slammed the bottom, and said unwillingly, "I'm so careless. No, even I was hit. If it weren't for my strong resistance, I'm afraid this time would be dangerous." Naruto shook his head. Urza was shocked. Is the other party so strong? How could he be able to make moves against us without knowing it? I don't know. It seems that those three guys are unusual. Next, we have to act carefully. Naruto helped her up, and the two returned to the town together. Although Urza had some prejudice against Naruto, at this juncture of the mission, she didn't have any more emotions and returned to Duke Laska's house with Naruto. After telling Duke Lasker about the mission, Duke Lasker couldn't help showing a look of fear on his face. How can I do this? How could you let those three guys escape? I'm going to be miserable now. They will definitely know that I am looking for someone to come here. The Duke took Naruto's hand and panicked. Naruto frowned. The Duke suddenly said, "You guys stay to protect me. I'll arrange rooms for you now." When Naruto heard this, he looked at Urza and nodded slowly. "Okay, then we'll be here with you for a few days, until the mission is completed and then go back. This is really great. After the task is completed, I will give you another 1 million bonus as a thank you," the Duke said with joy. After he finished speaking, he immediately sent someone to arrange for the two of Naruto, so that night, the two of them who had not made any progress in their mission had to temporarily live in the Duke's house. However, at this time around the Duke's house, three figures were quietly approaching from the back door. 629. Plan. That night, Naruto and Urza were arranged in 2 rooms. Naruto sat on the big soft bed and meditated seriously, but he always felt something was wrong. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, and Naruto stepped forward to open it. It was Urza. "What's wrong?" Naruto asked. At this time, because it was night, Urza finally put on a pair of white pajamas, and her long, soft hair of Yuhi color was draped over her shoulders. She came in and said, "Naruto, I always feel a little unsafe and want to come to sleep with you." Naruto was stunned for a moment, then nodded. It seems that Urza has a sense of crisis in her heart because of her inexplicable poisoning. He stepped forward and took her hand, let her sit on the bed, and said seriously, "Your concerns are not wrong. This is our first mission. There are still many things we don't know about the world, so be prepared for everything. The point is always right." Quote. Yeah, Urza nodded and agreed. Then let's rest, and we will track down those 3 guys tomorrow. After speaking, she picked up a sheet and came to the sofa. Naruto was stunned. "Aren't you going to bed?" I can't sleep in bed." "Okay." Urza asked in surprise. "It's alright, let's sleep together," Naruto said. Immediately got up on Yuhi's face, then glared at him angrily and said, "What are you thinking, you bastard? You sleep on the bed, I sleep on the sofa." "Ah, what are you thinking? With such a big bed, it's okay for us to sleep sideways, right? Why should we sleep separately?" Naruto was speechless, seeing the look on her face. Yuhi, he must be thinking crooked. Urza is so young, what is in her head? He shook his head and laughed. When Urza heard this, she realized that her reaction was a bit too much. Also, she and Naruto are still just children. Even if they sleep in the bed together, it's fine, but why does she always go in that direction? Yes, I do. Hateful. Why do I always have the idea of, only couples sleep in the same bed, in my mind? Okay, then I'll go to bed. Urza lowered her head and Yuhi climbed onto the bed with her face down. Naruto couldn't help but be speechless when she saw her pout and wiggling. After turning off the lights, the two slept side by side, but the quilt was not the same. Of course, Naruto wouldn't have any thoughts about a little girl like Urza, who was only about 10 years old, but Urza seemed to be a little different. "Urza, what's wrong with you?" Naruto asked aloud. Urza was startled. In the darkness, she quickly stopped turning over and said nervously, "I can't sleep." "If you can't sleep, count the sheep," Naruto said. Urza was taken aback. Is this method effective? You try it first. Oh, 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep. Elsa finally counted more than 100 sheep. Naruto thought, is this finally asleep? However, Urza's voice came again. "Naruto, I'm tired, but I still can't sleep." Naruto. He's about to collapse. Hearing that Naruto didn't speak, Urza also realized that she was making him rest, and quietly got up and said, "I'd better go back to my room and sleep." Naruto suddenly grabbed her, took her into his arms, and covered her lips with his hand. Elsa was suddenly startled, her body froze suddenly, and she froze there. What is Naruto doing? What should I do myself? Push him away. At this moment, Urza couldn't help but think about it. At this moment, Naruto's serious voice sounded in her ears. "Shish. Don't talk to Urza, there seems to be a sound outside." Urza was stunned when she heard the words. "It's not what I thought it was." Her face couldn't help getting hot again. Damn, she always thinks crooked. However, leaning against Naruto's arms, she suddenly felt a special feeling, as if she was very comfortable, and her heartbeat, which had become violent, gradually calmed down. At this time, Naruto heard a few conversations in his ears. "Lord Duke, those 2 children are wizards from fairy tale, it's not easy. Aren't you guys very strong in the past? Why can't you even handle 2 children, and I have already made one of them incompetent before. Could it be that the 3 of you can't beat a child? Lord Duke, that blonde kid is very difficult to deal with. The magic power at such a young age is unimaginable. Our magic can't do any harm to him at all. How can I do this? If we can't beat it, let's forget this plan. Anyway, there will be other mages coming next time. Lord Duke, don't you still have that potion? Now while they are sleeping, let's secretly release them, and we'll go in and take them down. It would be bad if they noticed it. Our plans are not in the light of the day. The magic power of those two little devils is very pure. If you can catch them and avoid sucking out their magic power, you will be able to complete most of your plan, Lord Duke." Hearing this, Naruto was slightly startled. He didn't expect that the three wizards and this Duke were in the same group. No wonder I and Urza were poisoned unknowingly. It turned out that this Duke did it. It's no wonder that ordinary mages would be on guard against their clients. Even when Naruto was on a mission in the ninja world before, there was no such thing. It seems that the world is more chaotic than imagined. The next moment, Naruto let go of Urza's mouth and lay on the bed waiting for their arrival. Urza's hearing is far less good than Naruto's. She didn't know what happened at all. When Naruto let go of her, she realized that she couldn't help asking, "Naruto, what happened?" Gleam of light flashed in Naruto's eyes, and he said lightly, "Elsa, now we are in the den of thieves." 630. Counter. After Naruto heard the conversation between the Duke and the three wizards, he was already prepared, and he felt extremely fortunate in his heart. If all aspects of this body were beyond the level of ordinary people, the five senses would be like this. If you are keen, you will not hear these conversations. In this regard, he has silently had a set of countermeasures in his heart. Next, after he told Elsa the matter in detail in her ear, the two pretended to fall asleep. After a while, Naruto's room was finally opened. Three figures walked in. When they saw that the two of Naruto were still sleeping together, they couldn't help but be a little surprised. These two little devils are so young that they share the same bed. The enchanting woman covered her mouth and chuckled. "Hey, isn't that just right? Let's move on again," the tall man said. "Let's do it." The short man waved his arm lightly and sprinkled a spray of medicinal powder into the room. After a while, the Duke came to the room. His squat body walked beside Naruto and Urza who were sleeping, and nudged them gently. No response. Hey, a kid is a kid, he doesn't even have basic protective measures. The Duke smiled proudly. He waved his hand, "Take them to the basement. Prepare for magic extraction." "Yes, Lord Duke." The three bowed slightly, went up to pick up Naruto and Urza, and walked out of the room. Under the ground of the manor is a huge underground secret room. In the center of the secret room, there are many tools, and the most conspicuous one is a high platform in the center. On both sides of the high platform, it looks like some very advanced instruments. This is the magic pump-out device. The Duke brought the three of them here, put Naruto and Urza on the high platform, and laughed. "I've drawn the magic power of 93 sorcerers. Together with these two, it's 95. Then the power of what low-level mages add up to, and finally they are close to the magic power of the 10th level. Congratulations, Lord Duke, with the magic power of these people, your plan is finally completed. I'm really looking forward to it." All three showed fascinated expressions. "If this plan is successful, I will be able to mass-produce the Holy 10 Sorcerers. At that time, I will be the highest person ruling the country." The Duke laughed. At this time, with the operation of the Duke, the instruments on the high platform moved one after another, and from the Naruto and Urza lying on the high platform, the magic power was drawn out in a state visible to the naked eye. Into those instruments. It's incredible. The magic power of these two little devils is actually more than expected. It's full. It's full. The Duke looked at the rapidly soaring magic power index on the meter beside him. However, at this moment, the door to the secret room was suddenly destroyed by a strong bang. Amidst the billowing smoke, two small figures stood at the door. It's Naruto and Urza. What? The Duke and the three mages turned pale in shock, and then looked at the two on the high platform, but they saw a bang, and they all disappeared into a cloud of white smoke. Is that fake? The four of them were shocked, and finally realized that they were being tricked, and they couldn't help but look very nervous. Naruto and Urza walked in slowly from the door. Urza held a sharp long knife in her hand and was wearing a set of sturdy armor, with a light expression on her face. The same is true for Naruto, but he didn't hold anything in his hands, and his bare hands made people feel even more pressure. It turns out that the four of you are a group. Are you making the Holy Ten Magus? I want to see how you made them. Naruto crossed his arms and looked at the four of them with a playful expression. Elsa beside her was taken aback. Aren't you going to kill them? Naruto. Naruto shook his head. I want to see if what they said is true, using the extracted magic to create a machine. Or a human. Ha ha ha, that's what you said. Stupid brat. The Duke heard the words, reached out and jumped to the high platform extremely quickly, stood there, pressed a remote control a few times, and the instruments suddenly surrounded him, tight then, enveloped him all over. Seeing this, Naruto showed a clear smile. It turned out to be injecting these magic powers into his body. Is this your plan? Arrogant stinky brat. We will never let you disturb the Duke. The three wizards quickly jumped in front of Naruto, blocking their way and shouting. Seeing this situation, Urza can't wait to kill the Duke. If he succeeds in his plan and becomes the Holy Ten Great Wizard, both of them will be finished. However, she turned her head to look at Naruto, only to find that he was standing there leisurely, not panic at all. Naruto, didn't you say you want to stop this guy's plan? Hurry up and kill him. Otherwise, it's too late. Urza yelled anxiously. Naruto shook his head slightly and smiled lightly. Don't worry, Urza, this guy won't succeed. If my estimate is correct, then we don't need to clean up these three guys at all. Urza looked at him puzzled. At this moment, there was a loud bang on the high platform, and the flames of the explosion immediately attracted the attention of the 5 people present. In the smoke of the explosion, I saw the magic power of Lord Duke soaring, exuding a suffocating pressure from his body. Success, the 3 wizards said in surprise when they looked at the figure of the Duke. Ha ha ha, stinky bastard. Look, the Duke's plan has been successful. You wait to die. Urza also looked anxious. She couldn't understand why Naruto was so calm. At this moment, Naruto suddenly stretched out his hand and made a seal, but the Duke was shocked. Then, he roared like crazy, and an incomparably powerful magical momentum spread out, that kind of powerful force. Even the air became heavy. However, just after the Duke roared, he suddenly turned his gaze to the 3 wizards, his subordinates. Immediately afterwards, he roared wildly, and Kai-Yuhi rushed towards the 3 people frantically with his eyes open. Ah, Lord Duke, what are you doing? The 3 of them jumped in shock and quickly stepped back. Unfortunately, Duke Hu Shining's magic power was soaring at this time, and their speed was simply not what they could handle. With a bang, the Duke and the 3 started a sudden civil war. And Naruto, a mysterious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. How could his power be so easily controlled? This Duke actually wants to inject other people's magic into his body. Although he can inject it into his body through special instruments, Naruto has already done tricks in his own magic, and he injected Naruto's magic into his own body. Take demise. Strong enemy, self-defeating without attacking. 631. Mission accomplished. Naruto's magic power has different characteristics from others. Not only does it have multiple attributes, but he also has absolute control over the magic power that can be contained in his current body. Therefore, he can use these magic powers to use all kinds of ninjutsu in the Hokage world. When the strength reaches a certain level, it is the same goal. A method like the Duke that simply uses the magic of others is ultimately inferior, not his own power, and cannot be completely controlled, and in the end, he cannot achieve perfect control. Therefore, although the Duke's power is powerful, it is a pity that he cannot control this power, and his spiritual power cannot reach that level. No amount of power will only become a burden. What's more, Naruto is still playing tricks in his own magic power, which is mixed with his own spiritual power. This spiritual power is a power that can completely disrupt the opponent's spirit. Seeing the Duke attacking the 3 subordinates like crazy, Urza opened her mouth wide and looked blank. Naruto, what the hell is going on? Why did they fight themselves? Naruto gave an inscrutable smile and asked, Urza, what do you mean by power? Power. Power is magic. Urza was stunned and replied immediately. Really? Naruto pointed at the Mad Duke and said, his magic power is very strong, but can such power hurt us? Urza was stunned again when she heard the words, and then slowly shook her head. He doesn't seem to be able to distinguish between enemy and me. Yeah, do you know why? Naruto said with a faint smile. He absorbed my magic power, but he couldn't control this power, and was eventually devoured by the power. That's why it became like this. When Urza heard this, a clear look appeared in her eyes, and she suddenly realized. I see, Naruto, you mean, only the power that you can control at will, that is the power that truly belongs to you. Naruto nodded and smiled. Let's go, it seems that this mission is in vain, and there are even problems with the client. Let's go back. He patted her on the shoulder and sighed. I didn't expect to be busy all day. Elsa suddenly shook her head and smiled and said, no, Naruto, this mission has taught me about power, and only the power that I have cultivated myself is the power that truly belongs to me. I will definitely practice hard in the future and strive to surpass you. Naruto laughed. The two walked out of the basement room. Boom boom boom. Underground, there was a burst of explosions, and it was the three wizards and the Duke who were fighting. The two of Naruto stood at the door of the basement. After a long time, the sky was already bright, and the three of them finally climbed out from the inside. All of them were injured. Lord Duke, what's the matter with you? They were still shouting, as if unable to understand the Duke's transformation. Naruto stepped forward with a knife and knocked them all out. Then he walked into the underground secret room and saw the Duke standing there, panting. His strength had dissipated. At this time, he had no chance to resist at all, and was easily knocked out by Naruto. Then, Naruto and Urza tied up all four and handed it over to the local government. The local government immediately rewarded the two with 1 million J, and put all four of them in jail. Before that, Naruto sent a clone to secretly go to the Duke's house to search for belongings. Unfortunately, he did not expect that the Duke's belongings were well hidden. He found nothing, only the expensive equipment and materials in the underground secret room. These things, he can't get it. Fortunately, the local government rewarded Naruto and Urza with 1 million J, which should be regarded as the reward for the task. Although the reward was twice as much as the original task, at least the two of them did not work in vain. On the train back, Urza, who hadn't slept last night, leaned back on the chair and fell asleep. Naruto also dozed off slightly, and when he woke up, the train had stopped at Magnolia, the guild. Where it is. The two got out of the car and went back to the Union. Because this is the first time for the two of them to go on a mission, although Naruto didn't feel anything, Urza was a little excited. Although she didn't contribute much in this mission, she felt that she had gained a lot. Therefore, along the way, she did not make face with Naruto. When we arrived at the guild, the hall was still as noisy as before. When everyone saw Naruto and Urza coming back, they celebrated their successful completion of their mission. Naruto, Urza, I heard that you have taken on an incredible mission. The mission of 2 million J was taken over by you. I didn't expect it to be completed the next day. That is a task that requires a team of more than 3 people to complete. I didn't expect you to complete it with only 2 people. The crowd gathered around one after another, with excited expressions on their faces, as if they had completed the task. Seeing the excitement on everyone's faces, Naruto couldn't help shaking his head and smiling. He and Urza came to President Makarov and explained to him the beginning and end of the mission. Makarov nodded with satisfaction. You guys did a good job. It is estimated that the matter will be reported in the newspaper tomorrow. Urza was a little nervous when she heard this. In the newspaper. Will others outside the guild know about our mission this time? Makarov nodded. Yes, after all, you helped the government catch a dangerous person. This kind of thing is not a small news. You are going to be famous at a young age. Urza couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable when she heard it, and Naruto smiled lightly, but she didn't think so. After walking around the guild, Naruto wanted to sit in the hall, but a group of people gathered around to ask questions, and he felt a little uncomfortable, but he had no choice but to pull Urza out of the hall in the end. After the two left the guild, Naruto gave her 500,000 J from the bonus, and asked her to buy some equipment. After all, Urza's dress-up magic had just been practiced, and the weapons and equipment were not yet complete. With these 500,000 J, she can initially buy some equipment she needs. However, Urza did not want the money, saying that this mission she didn't do anything at all, but instead became a burden, so she kept pushing and refusing. There was no way. In the end, Naruto couldn't beat her, so he took the money back, and then went to the weapons store to buy a few sets of armor and equipment for her, ready to find an opportunity to give her things. Her magic is highly dependent on equipment. Without good equipment, it is difficult to participate in the battle in the early stage, and her magic has just awakened. Naruto estimates that except for the silver-gray armor he often wears, there is basically no other equipment. After all, she just came out of the Tower of Paradise, how can she have the money to configure sophisticated equipment? 632. Give Urza a gift. Early the next morning, when Naruto came to the guild, he heard everyone talking lively. When Naruto walked in, everyone looked at him with awe and admiration. Even when Naruto's eyes fell on those little girls, they immediately became Face Yuhi's heartbeat. What's wrong? Naruto murmured secretly. At this time, a young man walked up to Naruto and whispered, Naruto, yesterday's newspaper came out. We all saw it. I didn't expect you to defeat such a powerful guy. It is said that you've reached the level of the top 10 magic guides. Naruto was stunned when he heard the words, and then he understood why everyone was looking at him like this. It turned out that they had misunderstood that their strength had reached the level of the top 10 magic guides. He glanced at the president sitting on the counter sleeping with his head down, and couldn't help shaking his head secretly. Yesterday, he had told him the ins and outs of the matter, but the old man knew that it was not what everyone understood, but he didn't stand up for it. Explain to yourself, this is obviously intentional. He smiled helplessly, and suddenly noticed that Gray was staring at him with unwilling eyes. His eyes were full of dissatisfaction. When Naruto looked at him, he turned his head angrily, then ran to the task board and looked for the task. It seems that this guy was stimulated. However, Urza, who came earlier than Naruto, seems to be in a worse situation than him. She saw a large group of people around her, chattering around her and constantly courting, men and women, old and young. There are all kinds of miscellaneous. And she was already impatient. She had always been low-key and was not good at talking to others. At this time, she had a tendency to explode. Fortunately, Naruto's arrival at this time broke her predicament, and Urza hurriedly pushed aside the crowd and ran to Naruto's side. Naruto, didn't you agree to buy something with me yesterday? Urza said. Naruto was stunned when he heard the words, and immediately felt relieved, nodded and smiled. Oh, yes, then let's go now. Yeah, Urza nodded quickly, pulling Naruto out of the guild first. Everyone watched Naruto and Urza leave, and couldn't help whistling. Yo, Naruto and Urza seem to have a good relationship. Yeah, the two of them seem to have known each other before they came to the guild. Hey, Elsa will definitely be a beauty when she grows up. It's a pity that the famous flowers have their own owners at such a young age. Cut, Naruto is still a handsome guy. Hey, it would be a pity if I were a few years younger. Just you, forget it. What did you say? Are you doubting the charm of the old lady? There was a loud crackling sound. Naruto and Urza fled the guild, gasping for breath. The two looked at each other and couldn't help smiling. What a lively and noisy guild, Naruto exclaimed. There was also a smile in Urza's eyes, but she immediately turned her face up again. What's wrong? Naruto said in surprise when he saw her expression. Urza snorted lightly, her face turned slightly. Yuhi ignored him, thinking to herself, she was obviously very unhappy with him before the mission. Why did she smile at him after only a day? No, he can never be easily forgiven for doing such a thing. Some Naruto who didn't know why looked at her for a while, and suddenly said, "Arusa, come to my house with me, I have something to bring you." "What is it?" she asked, trying to keep her tone calm. Smile appeared on the corner of Naruto's mouth. "You will know when you come." I don't want to go." As soon as Urza saw the smile on his face, she immediately had an idea that she couldn't refuse, but it would be too embarrassing to think that she would follow his wishes, so she was very curious in her heart. Something, but still shook his head. "Really don't come and see. You'll regret it." "No." Urza shook her head firmly. Naruto looked at her helplessly. This girl's temper was really elusive. After thinking for a while, he suddenly grabbed her arm and ran forward. What are you doing?" Urza couldn't compete with Naruto, and was taken away by him at once. "Hey, what are you doing with me?" "I'm not going." Naruto turned his head and said with a smile, "That thing is only for you. If I don't give it to you, I will think it will take up space at home." Urza's face was full of dissatisfaction, but she felt very happy in her heart, and a small smile appeared inadvertently on her stern face. After a while, the two finally came to Naruto's house. The place that I spent a lot of money rented was much better than the guild girls' dormitory where Elsa lived. The house was not only spacious, but also had luxurious facilities. After entering, on a shelf in the living room, there was a beautiful armor. Urza's beautiful eyes lit up slightly. "Is that what you're talking about?" Urza walked over with a look of affection on her face. "Well, although this armor is not a well-known armor, it was bought with a lot of money, which can improve your attack power and defense power," Naruto said. This armor cost a lot of money, right?" Urza asked as she touched the armor with her small hands. Not much. Naruto smiled. "If you want, take it." Urza was silent for a while, looking hesitant. "Okay, then I'll accept it, and I'll give you the money next time," Urza said with her head lowered. "Okay, let's talk about it next time." Naruto laughed. It seems that Urza really likes this armor. She suddenly raised her head and said, "Naruto, I will definitely give you the money next time. Don't think I'll forgive you if you give me something, I won't accept your gift if you don't admit it was wrong," Urza cried. When Naruto heard the words, he couldn't help laughing bitterly. He recognized Urza's stubbornness. It was really difficult. 633. Quest for Magic. But in the end, Urza still accepted the armor, but she repeatedly stressed that she would return the money to him. With a flash of brilliance in her hand, the armor suddenly disappeared. "It looks like space magic." In fact, Urza's dressing magic is a multi-type magic, and the magic in her body is not a single attribute, and can even change with the attributes of the armor. This is similar to the multi-attribute magic in Naruto's body, except that compared to Urza, Naruto's can control the changes of the magic attribute in the body at will, while Urza can only rely on the attribute changes of the equipment. If you insist on saying it, Urza's dressing up magic is more similar to space magic. Naruto is a little curious about this. He can only feel that the magic in his body is mixed with various attributes, but most of them are attributes such as wind, fire, thunder, water and soil, while other aspects, such as light, dark, space, and other attributes, he did not feel. However, he also knew in his heart that the magic of nature must contain various attributes, and there should be no reason to lack attributes such as space, light and darkness. What is the reason? Naruto couldn't figure this out. Therefore, he has been unable to use space ninjutsu for a long time. In this world with so much magic power, it shouldn't be difficult to use space ninjutsu. Therefore, for the next time, Naruto kept Urza and discussed the cultivation of strength with her. Through communication, Naruto knew that Elsa did not have other attributes of magic, and her magic power could only use dressing-type magic. This point, she said that she has been like this since she awakened magic, and she could not control it. Established existence. This made Naruto fall into a deep contemplation. Logically speaking, the magic power of mages comes from the natural world. If this is the premise, why can the magic power in his body only use his own type of magic? After asking Urza this question, Urza said with a look of surprise, "Naruto, isn't this a very simple question? Although our magic power comes from the outside world, those magic powers from the outside world cannot be used directly. You must refine it, and then let your mental power choose the magic power that suits your type. Otherwise, your body will collapse." Naruto couldn't help but stunned. "So, when you meditate, are you all refining magic instead of absorbing magic?" "Of course." Urza looked at him strangely. "Naruto, aren't you like this?" Naruto was speechless. It turns out that in this world, the magic power of nature cannot directly enter the human body. If it is not refined, these magic power will directly cause trauma to the body's tissues. However, Naruto himself knew that he could directly absorb the natural magic power from the outside world, and until now, the magic power he used was directly absorbed from the outside world. That is to say, the magic power he uses is directly derived from the natural magic power of the outside world, not the refined magic power. With that said, everything is clear. The reason why Naruto can't use space ninjutsu is because there is no space in the attributes of natural magic power. The magic power of nature has only 5 attributes of wind, fire, water, earth, and thunder that make up its own. Except for these 5 attributes, the other attributes are only after refining and changing. That is to say, the magical attributes in Naruto's body are the most primitive attributes that have not undergone their own changes, while the attributes of Urza's magical powers are attributes that have been transformed by herself, bringing with them the attributes that come with human beings. "So, what are your attributes?" Naruto couldn't help asking himself. Then, he asked Urza this question again. Urza's answer surprised him, because Urza's magical properties have been generated since she awakened magic, and she didn't even realize it. It seemed that her body automatically chose a change that was most suitable for her. Saying so, Naruto is even more puzzled. His magic has long been awakened, but he found that he did not bring his own attribute changes. He knew that when he was in the world of Hokage, his body belonged to the wind attribute, and after training he also mastered the attributes of water and soil, but in the end he mastered the power similar to the Tao, which can be used no matter what attribute it is. No matter what spell can be used, as if you are a god. Could it be that at that moment, his body had undergone some kind of special change, that is to say, was his body completely incompatible with other people now? If you assume this, some questions can make sense. Why did you directly absorb a lot of magic power when you meditated for the first time, and why was your body so strong that even the dragon's attack could be ignored? It seems that this body still has many potentials and secrets that I don't even know about. As for the 5 basic attributes of the magic in the body, Naruto is now directly using attribute magic. Before, there were also magic powers of these 5 attributes combined to use special ninjutsu, such as enchantment, medical treatment, etc. Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but flash a light in his mind. Why don't you reverse this magic power? Return it to the original, that is, the power without attributes. Similar to the state of the original natural chakra. Now that you have thought of it, do it. Naruto immediately closed his eyes and entered into meditation, carefully observing the magical changes in his body. Urza sat on the side. She couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. This guy Naruto is really, he started to practice after chatting. What the hell are you doing? She stared at him angrily. But she suddenly realized that she didn't know him at all. What kind of background does this guy come from? From the first time she knew him, he gave herself a loaf of bread. In that case, there are really very few people who can give their food to others, so from that moment, she herself got a crush on Naruto. Later, the power he showed and the figure he showed when he led everyone to resist the Tower of Paradise deeply shocked and worshipped him. From him, he seemed to see the hero flying freely under the distant sky. Eagle, that kind of unrestrainedness and freedom is the existence that I yearn for in my heart. However, in the end, he killed Gerald with another blow, which made him unable to understand. Under the gentleness and rationality, his body also seemed to have the opposite domineering in blood. What a crazy boy. Urza's eyes couldn't help but show distress. How should she understand him? 634. Negotiate with Ten Tails. At this time, Naruto was carefully observing the situation in this body. In the body, the magic power flows around in the meridians, smoothly and powerfully. These magic powers seem to carry colorful rays of light. Are they various attributes? Naruto tried to control these magic powers, merging and changing the attributes of these magic powers. Water and soil. Wood property. Wind and water. Ice attribute. The fusion of these two properties has been done by itself. However, it doesn't seem to be that simple to fuse properties outside of these two, which also requires methods. Just like when changing the properties of Mokuden, wood style, the properties of water and soil must be matched in different proportions, and then blended together to make it work as you wish. It takes time to try. With that said, the problem is much simpler. When I was in the Hokage world, I always had a kind of nature transformation that couldn't carry out the 5 attributes of chakra with no attributes, because to use the ninjutsu of the corresponding attributes, the maximum power and power can only be achieved under the premise of attribute changes. Effect. Now, his troubles seem to be completely opposite to those at that time. Chakras without attributes can use ninjutsu with attributes, but magic powers with attributes cannot use magic techniques without attributes. This also complies with a rule. The lower-level power cannot use the spells corresponding to the upper-level power, but the upper-level power can use the lower-level power spells. The power without attributes is higher than the power with attributes. And no attribute is equivalent to a kind of chaotic power. Chaos is divided into yin and yang transforms all things. That is, the 5 attributes change, and the levels of power are ordered. In this way, space ninjutsu is a technique that must be used on the basis of no attributes. If you want to use space ninjutsu in this world, that is, space magic, you must first let the magic of the natural world go back and turn it into pure power without attributes. That is, chaos. As everyone knows, what Naruto is thinking of now is exactly the realm that the world's top wizards have longed for hundreds of years, that is, the magic of 1. Naruto thought about it carefully, and suddenly, there was a strange feeling in his consciousness. The next moment, he suddenly came to a dark space. Awareness space. Naruto was suddenly very surprised. He looked up and saw Ten Tails, who was trapped in the darkness, suddenly said, "Little devil. Let me out. I'm thinking about something, don't bother me," Naruto said impatiently. Being so mixed up by this guy, he could only interrupt his own train of thought. "Ha ha ha, kid, are you troubled by your powers?" Ten Tails burst out laughing. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then narrowed his eyes and said with a dangerous expression, "How do you know?" "Hey, I just felt the power change in your body. You don't have to think about it to know that you are exploring these powers called magic. Now you can't use spacetime ninjutsu, isn't it inconvenient?" Ten Tails laughed. "In the past, your teleportation was an invincible existence. Even I couldn't do anything about you, now what? No way." "What are you talking about?" Naruto asked coldly. Ten Tails paused for a while, then suddenly said coldly, "As smart as you must have realized that the power of this world has been tampered with artificially. It should have belonged to the power of chaos, but now it has become the 5 types of wind, fire, water, earth and thunder. Attributes. This kind of power also has advantages and disadvantages for you. After eliminating attribute changes, you can use various mainstream ninjutsu and magic, but higher-level magic can no longer be used." Quote. Naruto fell silent. Ten Tails' voice paused, then said, "And it seems that you should have noticed the solution, right?" Naruto was startled and frowned. "Ten Tails, what do you want to do?" "Haha, it seems you guessed it," Ten Tails said angrily. "If you don't let me out of here." I will try my best to interfere with you. Let you not be able to return your power to the original. Let you never know further use of deep power. It is as expected. Naruto cursed secretly, this damned guy. When it was sealed in its own body, its soul has been tightly connected with itself, which is the so-called human Jinchuriki column force. In this case, there are only two solutions. One is to swallow the power of Ten Tails with one's own power, which is to swallow its soul and completely control the power of Ten Tails. The second is to communicate with the Ten Tails and reach an agreement with it that it will automatically allow itself to use its powers. The former seems to be more difficult than the latter, but for Naruto, both are equally difficult. Because he didn't want to have another guy in his soul that could threaten him, and it was really difficult to communicate with Ten Tails. This guy seems to be very evil from birth. If it were not so, he would not have been sealed by the 6 paths immortal and divided into 9-tailed beasts. In comparison, it is easier to convince the 9-tailed beasts. How? Do you agree? If you let me out, I won't affect you anymore, Ten Tails said. Naruto was silent for a while, then suddenly raised his head and looked at it with a sneer. Ten Tails, do you think I don't want to kick you out? This seal is set and cannot be changed, and even if I know how to release it, the method will not be unlocked from the inside at all. If you do that, you insidious guy will definitely attack me. In that way, you will get my body and kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You think I will do this, stupid? Damn, Ten Tails' face changed when he heard that. His thoughts were exposed, and he immediately cursed, you damn bastard. If that's the case, then just wait and see. I'll make you never do it. There you go. You can no longer return power to chaos. Humph. Then try it. Whatever. Naruto sneered. He had known for a long time that he and Ten Tails would never talk about going together. Negotiations broke down. Naruto sighed. He left the space of consciousness and returned to reality. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Urza was staring at him tightly. When he opened his eyes to look at her, it took a while for her to react. Ah, haven't you practiced yet? Urza's face turned a little yuhi, and she quickly turned away from Naruto's gaze. 635. Drinking friends. This guy, why did he open his eyes all of a sudden? Want to scare people to death? Urza clutched her beating heart and thought angrily. Yeah, Naruto was still immersed in the conversation with Ten Tails just now, and nodded slightly. His face was not very good-looking. What's wrong? Urza asked involuntarily when she saw his sullen face. No, it's fine. Naruto came back to his senses and shook his head. Seeing that he obviously had something to do but didn't tell her, Urza couldn't help but snorted coldly, and turned her face away unpleasantly. Well, then I should go back now. She stood up and said. When Naruto heard this, he raised his head and said, will you sit for a while? No, I'm going back to practice. Seeing you working so hard, how can I fall behind? Urza said angrily. Ah, okay. Naruto nodded and watched Urza leave. Along the way, Urza muttered indignantly, what a nasty guy. However, she soon used dressing magic to replace the armor she had obtained from Naruto before, and happily returned to her dormitory wearing it. The day passed peacefully, and for the next few days, neither Naruto nor Urza went to accept the mission. Elsa has realized her own shortcomings. Her current strength is still very limited, and she cannot do some challenging tasks at all. The most important thing is to train more, improve her strength, and do some tasks within her power. Learn to make up for your shortcomings. Naruto, on the other hand, is constantly researching his own magic power, trying hard to make it return to the original, but unfortunately, when he really intends to do this, he will feel a strange force obstructing it. Don't think about it. It's the 10 tails at work. No way, it seems that the research on this aspect is temporarily suspended, first to increase his own magic power reserves and learn stronger magic, even if the space technique is temporarily unavailable. In other aspects, he can also think of ways. As long as you make your own strength strong enough to kill 10 tails, then everything will be solved naturally. Moreover, this is not impossible. Ten Tails has a very big limit in his body. As long as he keeps getting stronger, it is not impossible. So, these few days, he and Urza have basically disappeared in the guild, and they just came to see it by chance. On this day, Naruto finished practicing magic and felt that his magic level had improved a little, so he decided to go to the guild to sit and have a drink. Walking into the guild, everyone is still as usual, the noise is very noisy. Naruto found a secluded corner, ordered a glass of juice, sat there, and drank it leisurely. The guild leader doesn't seem to be here today, so the riots in the guild are even more vigorous, and everyone is unscrupulous. But the strange thing is that Naruto did not see Gray in the group of noisy children, which was a bit unexpected. At this moment, Mikao finished chatting with his drinking buddies, and ordered a glass of juice, walked over to Naruto and sat down. Mikao. Naruto looked at him suspiciously. This guy actually stopped drinking with his drinking friend Wakaba. Mikao smiled and said, "Drink too much wine, drink some juice slowly." Then he sat down and chatted with Naruto. "Naruto, I heard that there will be a celebration in 2 days. The president arranged to celebrate the joining of you and Urza." Mikao whispered. "Celebration?" Naruto was stunned. "Isn't that necessary?" "Of course I do. Originally, the president wanted to separate your celebrations, but since you and Urza entered the union a few days later, they simply arranged them together." "That's it. Okay, then I'm not going to take the quest. I originally planned to wait for a quest." Naruto nodded. "You've worked so hard. You're only 10 years old, aren't you? It's really embarrassing for an old man like me to work so hard." Mikao laughed after drinking a sip of juice. "It's okay, the purpose of my joining the guild is to understand the world through tasks, see more powerful people, and improve my power." "Improve your strength. It's hard to do." "Oh right, everyone is curious about your strength now. It is true or false to say that you have defeated the existence of the 10 great magic guides in the mission. Can you tell me what kind of strength you are now?" he asked 8 trigrams. Naruto smiled lightly. "I don't know that, after all, I haven't seen the real Holy 10 Magi." "Haha, that's true," Mikao said with a smile, "but everyone still thinks that your strength should be the strongest among your peers. You are stronger than Laxus." Naruto smiled indifferently. At this moment, a clear voice suddenly came from the side. "Mikao, Wakaba asked you to come and drink." "Ah, well, here we come." Before the juice in Mikao's hand was finished, he said goodbye to Naruto and walked away. Then, the owner of the crisp voice came to Naruto and sat down, holding 2 bottles of wine in his hand. "Hey Naruto, why are you drinking alone?" a female voice greeted. Naruto looked up and saw a little girl in her teens, wearing a long plaid dress, with slightly curly long hair casually draped over her shoulders, with a smile on her beautiful jade face. Naruto remembered, it was Kana. "I was chatting with Mikao just now." After hearing her words, Naruto said speechlessly, "Hee, do you mind if I sit here for a while?" Kana laughed. She didn't care whether Naruto agreed or not. She sat down and pushed a bottle of wine in front of Naruto at the same time. "Do you want to drink?" Naruto was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "I'll drink the juice." When Kana heard this, she had to take the bottle back and pour herself a glass, then raised the glass to Naruto and said, "Then let me have a toast with your juice." Naruto raised the cup, touched her, took a sip, and then saw her gulping down the wine in the cup, pouring another bottle, exhaling and laughing. "Naruto, the wine is delicious. Do you really want to have some?" Seeing that she could drink so much, Naruto couldn't help but be speechless, but he felt that if he didn't drink a little, he would really be looked down upon by girls. So he also poured a glass of wine, touched Kana, and drank it all. Kana's big eyes suddenly lit up. 636. Drink. "Naruto, so you can drink too. Hee, come, have another drink." Kana laughed happily, and hurriedly poured him another glass of wine. Naruto waved his hand. "It's not good to drink too much, this is the last cup." Kana smiled and nodded. Okay, okay. The last cup is the last one. As a result, the two teenagers were sitting and drinking together, and everyone around them frequently looked sideways. However, Kana has no relatives since she was a child, so no one cares about her. Even if she drinks, it doesn't matter, so at this time, she and Naruto have a good time drinking, with a smile on her face like a flower. Hey, Naruto, let me ask you something. What's your relationship with Urza? After drinking a glass of wine, Kana asked boldly. You guys seem to have known each other for a long time. Naruto took a sip and said with a slight smile, friendship, but we did know each other before entering the guild. Oh, that's it. Kana's tone was obviously a little lost when she heard it. In this case, his advantage will definitely be no match for Urza, and people have already known it. What's wrong? Naruto couldn't help but ask when she looked down with her head down and looked worried. It's okay, come on, let's continue drinking. Kana raised her head and smiled. The two clinked glasses and drank. At this moment, Elsa suddenly walked into the guild. She looked up and looked around for a while, and immediately saw Naruto sitting with Kana in the corner. Just walked towards this side. Naruto, why are you drinking? Urza asked immediately. Before Naruto could speak, Kana raised her head and giggled. Naruto likes to drink with me, so of course you have to drink it. Urza, would you like to have some too? She also raised her glass and shook it. His eyes were full of provocation. Elsa frowned immediately. Then, she ignored her, walked directly to Naruto, snatched the wine glass from his hand, raised her head and finished drinking, shook the empty glass, and said to Kana, okay. Well, now that he has finished drinking, I have something to do with him and we should leave. There was anger in his voice, as if he was dissatisfied. After speaking, she couldn't help but pull up Naruto's arm and walked outside. Wait. Kana hurriedly stood up. Naruto is drinking with me, what do you mean? Arusa said without turning her head. Naruto is still young, so you can't drink alcohol. Kana, don't drink indiscriminately in the future. If you want to have a relationship, drink it by yourself, don't call Naruto. Damn, how can you do this? It's so annoying. I'm so pissed off. Kana stomped her feet angrily, pouting her lips in anger. Urza, the lady must make you look good. Naruto was dragged all the way to the river beside the guild by Arusa. He was a little puzzled, stopped and asked, Alusha, what's the matter with you? Why are you in such a hurry? Urza also stopped, turned around and stared at him blankly. Naruto, drinking is wrong. Is it okay to drink some wine? Naruto couldn't help but be speechless. Forget it, it looks like I'm meddling with my own business. When Urza heard this, she turned around angrily and ignored him again. Naruto touched his nose and sat down by the river, blowing the wind. After a while, he suddenly said, Elsa, do you think you can't agree with what I did? Elsa's body trembled slightly, she was silent for a while, and said in a low voice, no, maybe I can't understand it. Naruto suddenly sighed. You offended Kana by doing this today. You just came to the guild, and you haven't gotten to know everyone yet. Now that you offend others, you will be in trouble in the future. Urza heard the words and snorted suddenly. Urza, are by no means afraid of things. If you want to help her, Naruto, feel free to do it. This is your business, and I won't help anyone. Naruto quickly distanced himself from the relationship. Urza glared at him fiercely. She originally thought that Naruto would help her, but she didn't expect him to say that the two are not helping each other. Hateful. Okay, Urza, put these trifles aside for now. Why did you rush to find me just now? Naruto stood up, patted his pants and asked. Urza heard the words and then replied, I came out to ask you to train with me. My magic is not only about the conversion and use of equipment, but also about physical exercise. I have made progress by practicing alone these days. Limited, Naruto, can you help me cultivate? Yuhi suddenly felt dizzy on her face, her eyebrows frowned slightly, and she muttered, wine is really not a good thing, it feels a bit strange. Seeing this, Naruto couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. Urza was drinking for the first time, and she drank half of her glass at once, so it's strange that there is nothing unusual. However, this drink should not affect anything, it just looks a little bit yuhi. So, after it was settled, the two began to train. Naruto's strength was very strong. After Urza put on the armor he gave and her current best weapon, she still couldn't hurt Naruto. Just watching Naruto dangling around like a stroll in the courtyard, Urza couldn't touch him at all. Hateful, is the difference so big? After attacking for more than 10 minutes in a row, Urza didn't touch Naruto's piece of clothing, Kakuzu, and stopped in the same place, panting. Continue to attack, Naruto said lightly. Urza bit Kiba and had to rush up again. After holding on for more than 10 minutes, her feet softened, and she fell to the ground with a thud. Gasping for breath, her forehead was full of beads of sweat. After nearly half an hour of all-out attack, not only did Urza use up her magic power, but her stamina was completely drained. Naruto stepped forward to help her up and let her sit and rest for a while. That's it for today, your magic and physical strength still need to be exercised, otherwise you won't be able to do the task at all. Urza nodded. After this short battle, Urza finally realized the gap between herself and Naruto. It was like an insurmountable gap. With all his strength, Naruto didn't even shed a single drop of sweat. 637. Celebration. Days passed by 10:10. Urza became more and more powerful in her cultivation with Naruto. From the beginning, she couldn't even touch him, to the extent that she can now force Naruto to resist. However, even so, Urza still couldn't take Naruto's 3 moves, and often lost directly with one move. However, on such a day, Urza felt very fulfilled. Compared to being in the Tower of Paradise, she felt that this was the freedom she wanted most. When I'm tired from training, I go to the guild to drink something and listen to everyone chatting, and then go home to rest and sleep at night. Occasionally do some simple tasks to earn some living expenses. Cozy, Enron, here, not as oppressed as when you were a slave, everything is beautiful. Although in the guild, I often heard people talk about the darkness of the magic world, but she felt that these were still far away from her. In addition to training with Urza every day, Naruto is also studying the transformation of magic power in his body. Although he can't solve the problem of 10 tails, but in his continuous research, he is also studying the transformation of magic power in his body. He has become more and more proficient in the use of magic and ninjutsu of various attributes. Of course, Naruto has seen too little magic now, basically just using the ninjutsu in the Hokage world as magic, and it can also achieve unexpected power and effects. On this day, the president came back, and it was time to start the celebration of Naruto and Urza. When the two of Naruto first came to the guild was more lively than before, and there were more people, crowded in the hall, all eyes on Naruto and the others. Being watched by so many people, Urza, who had never experienced such an experience before, couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. She glanced at Naruto and said in a low voice, "It's so noisy here." Naruto smiled slightly, although he was a little surprised, but as a strong man who has seen strong winds and waves, this kind of scene is still in the pediatrics department, so he didn't feel anything. At this time, the president clapped his hands, signaled everyone to be quiet, stood on the counter, coughed, and made a few congratulatory words, then waved his hands and shouted, "Today's protagonists are Naruto and Urza. Everyone must have fun." Quote. With the president's affirmation, everyone cheered, some raised their glasses to drink, some sang and danced on the spot, and some stood directly on the table. However, compared to them, what annoyed Naruto even more was that a group of girls, ranging from 10 to 30, surrounded him, and Urza was in the same situation. Fortunately, Elsa didn't like such a noisy appearance. She stood there and closed her eyes for a few seconds. Her face seemed to be mad at any time. She immediately scared off a lot of people, and her ears were quiet. On Naruto's side, it was a lot of trouble. The little girls kept chatting around Naruto, and the mature women were even more annoying, and people kept reaching out to touch his face. If Naruto wasn't smart enough to get out immediately after saying a few words, I'm afraid it would be more troublesome. However, today was a celebration anyway, and Naruto felt that he and Urza couldn't be too cold. So after sitting down in the hall, I chatted with other people in the guild. However, just when Elsa was about to chat with everyone, the salty pig hand who didn't know where she was trying to tease her, but she caught her on the spot before she touched her. Then, the angry Ailusa, finally unable to bear it any longer, exploded with a bang. It was a teenager who was a few years older than her, and his strength was considered above average among his peers, but in Urza's hands, he was beaten to the ground in a few seconds. At this time, Naruto also noticed the movement on her side, pushed the girls away and came to Urza. I was seeing Urza staring at the boy with anger, and the boy was almost beaten to the core. What's the matter, Urza? Naruto was surrounded by girls before, and he didn't know the situation here. Now that he saw such a situation, he couldn't help but ask. Everyone around has automatically left Urza 10 meters away, looking at her in horror. When Urza told Naruto about the situation, Naruto couldn't help frowning, walked over and stretched out his hand to lift the boy up. He asked coldly, "You want to molest Urza?" The boy's face was swollen from being beaten, and he couldn't see what his face was. Hearing that, he said vaguely, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, I'm wrong, next time, I'll never do it again. Don't dare." Seeing how pitiful he was being beaten, everyone around felt sympathy. "Forget it, the child is ignorant, let him go," someone said aloud. "Yes, he has already apologized." Naruto snorted coldly and nodded. "Okay, I'll let him go." After speaking, before everyone could breathe a sigh of relief, they saw a loud bang, followed by a scream, and a figure flew out like a meteor and slammed into the wall of the guild. The thick wall of the guild was also directly blasted out a large hole in the shape of a human. Everyone was shocked, and someone rushed over to check, only to see that the boy was already dying in the rubble. "Hey, Naruto, you are too ruthless," someone shouted in dissatisfaction. Naruto suddenly turned his head and stared at the man coldly, and said in a cold voice, "If I had attacked ruthlessly, he would have already died. This is a little punishment for him." Everyone was terrified, seeing such a strong and ruthless Naruto, who could treat his own guild members with such a heavy hand. Many people were startled, and some people could not even agree with him. However, Urza's eyes were full of strangeness when she looked at Naruto. Seeing that he almost killed the members of his guild for this trivial matter, at this moment, he couldn't help but think of how he killed Gerald with one blow. Condition. Such a scene is so similar to that time, except that this time he did it for himself. For some reason, Naruto's actions this time made Urza have an indescribable emotion. Want to cry. 638. Transformation. The celebration was disturbed by this incident. And after this incident, everyone can be considered to understand the temperament of Naruto and Urza. Don't look at the two of them who don't usually talk much, but they are definitely not the kind of people who are easy to bully. The boy who was beaten by them has not been able to come to the guild until now, and is still lying at home for treatment. This is the best proof. It is worth mentioning that Makarov talked to Naruto that day, and wanted to teach him to be tolerant and treat his companions kindly. But Naruto just smiled lightly and said, "Not killing him is my greatest tolerance." Makarov was immediately speechless. However, through this incident, everyone really dare not provoke Naruto and Urza in the future, especially Urza. If you want to provoke her, you must first think about who is standing behind her. That's Naruto. It is said that the existence of the magic guide who defeated the Holy Ten. However, in addition to those who are in awe of Naruto, there are also many girls who can't help screaming when they see him, because since that incident, Naruto's popularity among girls has risen to the level of number 1 in the guild. As a result, as soon as Naruto entered the guild, many girls gathered around to bring tea and water, so that he didn't dare to go in again. However, after this incident, the only thing that comforted him was that Urza had changed a bit. She, who didn't talk much at first, gradually let go of her courage, and she would immediately take action when she saw some unhappy guys. Lessons learned: with her strength, there are almost no opponents among her peers, and some good people have completely become her sandbags. It seems that this girl also has the potential of a female Tyrannosaurus in her bones. In the past 2 days, except for seeing Grey once at the celebration, Naruto basically disappeared. After walking around in the guild, I heard that he was either doing missions or training in the past 2 days. Moreover, Kana, who had been biting Kiba's teeth at Urza, suddenly settled down recently, looking at her and Naruto with resentment in her eyes. Originally, she would look for an opportunity to strike up a conversation with Naruto, but now she runs away when she sees Urza. Sometimes, the shock of force is really very useful. This kind of life went on for a month. During this period, Naruto also went out to do some tasks alone, and occasionally went out with Urza, and got more and more bonuses. In addition to eating and drinking and buying some basic daily necessities and fighting equipment, Naruto also there's basically nowhere to spend. Therefore, he often went to buy some weapons and armor for Urza to help her enrich her equipment arsenal. Of course Urza wouldn't accept Naruto's gift so easily, but after Naruto said, "Just settle with me when you have money in the future," she didn't say anything more, and happily accepted Naruto's purchase. After getting the equipment, she would sometimes give Naruto some specific conditions, such as the newest equipment, armor, etc. When Naruto heard about it, if he had money, he would basically buy it for her. Because of this, Naruto and Urza have become a well-recognized couple in the guild. Usually, no boy or girl dares to approach Urza anymore, because everyone is afraid of their strength. If anyone dares to take action against Urza, the boy who has been lying down and hasn't recovered will be the best example. Moreover, Urza's strength is also the strongest among girls. Usually when she is not in the guild, it is fine. There will be girls chatting up with Naruto and so on. Once Urza comes, all the girls will settle down, turn a blind eye to Naruto. In the face of such a scene, Naruto was a little dumbfounded. Of course he didn't care, he did what he should do every day, and made himself stronger step by step. However, the atmosphere in the fairy tale guild today seemed a little unusual. Naruto and Urza returned to the guild after training as usual, looking for a satisfactory task to do. Unexpectedly, as soon as I entered the guild, everyone looked at Naruto with strange eyes, and those eyes seemed to be saying, "You have a big deal." Naruto didn't know why, so he looked around the hall and found that there was no difference. So he went directly to the task board and searched for the task with Urza. At this moment, a little girl suddenly came to Naruto and whispered a few words in Naruto's ear. Naruto was stunned when he heard it. At this moment, a tall figure suddenly entered the door. After this figure entered the door, the atmosphere of everyone was obviously stagnant. Then, the man's extremely arrogant voice sounded from his mouth. "You guys who have nothing to do all day. Tell me Uzumaki Naruto is here." The voice spread to every corner of the guild. Since the president was not there, everyone looked at me and I looked at you, but no one answered. After a while, Mikao stood up and said, "Laxus, what are you going to do with Naruto?" "None of your business. Do you know where he is?" Mikao opened his mouth and backed away. At this time, Naruto suddenly found that several girls standing in front of him were moving quietly, blocking his vision all of a sudden. He frowned slightly. What happened to everyone? And the actions of these girls seem to be that they don't want to be seen by the one named Laxus. Laxus. I seem to have heard this name. It seems to be the grandson of President Makarov. What is this guy doing for himself? While Naruto was thinking, he couldn't help but push aside the girls who were blocking him and walked over, with Urza following closely behind. "I'm here, what are you looking for from me?" Naruto appeared in front of him and said lightly. Laxus was stunned for a moment, looked down, and saw that Naruto was only about 10 years old and only above his waist, with a childish look on his face. "Are you Uzumaki Naruto?" he asked in surprise. Yes, I am, what do you want from me? Naruto looked up and said, this guy looks 17 or 18 years old, also has blonde hair, handsome with a hint of sturdy, and his eyes are full of arrogance. It seems that this is not a good guy to get along with. 639. Laxus Provocation. When Laxus heard this, he suddenly narrowed his eyes, looked down at him contemptuously and said, I heard that you are very strong. Hearing this, Naruto frowned slightly and shook his head lightly. I'm not strong, what's the matter with you? The contemptuous look in his eyes made Naruto feel very unhappy. Humph. I heard that there were 2 newcomers in the Old Man's Guild recently, and one of them, Uzumaki Naruto, is very powerful. What? Are those bluffs? He suddenly snorted coldly. Hey, you bastard, talk to me well. Just say something, don't say it's useless. At this time, Urza said suddenly in annoyance. Laxus glanced at her with a contemptuous arc on the corner of his mouth. He ignored her, but looked at Naruto and asked directly, are you capable of fighting with me? Are you a challenge? Naruto chuckled. This is not a challenge, I just want you to know who is the strongest in this guild. A bravado kid like you is not worth my challenge. Laxus smiled coldly. Hearing this, everyone in the guild couldn't listen anymore, and a few older guild elders said to stop them. Okay, Laxus, don't talk too much. Shut up all of you. Laxus suddenly pointed his finger at everyone and said angrily, even this teenage boy, you all admit that he is the strongest, does he still have any prospects? Ah. His tone sounded like a guild leader. No, even the president would not teach everyone in this tone. Everyone frowned. But everyone looked at the president's face, and the old people stopped entanglement, shaking their heads and sighing. At this time, Naruto suddenly smiled when he saw this scene. Is it Laxus? I heard that you are the grandson of the president. I don't know where you have such a temper to everyone, hee, I'm a little uncomfortable with it. Ha ha ha, it's really funny. Uzumaki Naruto, how dare a newcomer be so arrogant? Laxus laughed angrily upon hearing this. He seldom came to the guild, and he had been out for missions and training a few days ago. He just came back to the guild in the past 2 days, but after he came in, he heard that a guy named Uzumaki Naruto was very popular. I heard that his strength is very strong, and he is the strongest existence in the guild. Of course, this kind of thing made him very uncomfortable. Originally, he always thought that he was the strongest existence among the younger generation, but now everyone is saying that Naruto is powerful. Therefore, he is bound to find Naruto today and compete with him. It's just that when he saw that Naruto was actually a little devil, he immediately felt as if he had been insulted. With such a hairy boy, everyone actually said that he was better than himself. This is just laughing at myself. Who can bear such a thing? Of course Laxus couldn't bear it. At this time, he officially decided to teach Naruto a lesson and let everyone see who is the strongest existence. In the face of Laxus' unreasonable trouble, Naruto was also very upset at this time. Although he has always liked a low-key life, but people have come to despise him, can he still shrink his head? I can't stand it. Laxus, did you just say you wanted to show me who is the strongest? Naruto said blankly. Humph, are you afraid? If you kneel down and kowtow to me now, I will spare you. Laxus shouted arrogantly. Naruto frowned. This guy really deserves a beating. Furious, bastard, I'll accompany you to do some tricks. As she spoke, she conjured a long sword and was about to rush up. For her, although Naruto has many shortcomings, he is also an existence that others cannot despise. Anyone who looks down on Naruto will look down on himself. Naruto can seriously injure the boy for himself, and he can also go for him. Except this bastard's provocation. However, just as she was about to rush up, Naruto reached out to stop her and said with a slight smile, let me take care of this guy myself. The tone was understatement, as if it was just a trivial matter. Compared with Laxus domineering, everyone felt that Naruto's indifference made people more excited. If it weren't for the power of Laxus, everyone would have shouted slogans to cheer for Naruto. Little devil, very good. You are more arrogant than me. Laxus grinned, revealing a cruel smile. Okay, stop talking nonsense, let's do it. Naruto waved his hand, stood still, looked at him and said. Laxus was stunned for a moment, and immediately became furious. This kid, how dare you look down on yourself? Although he is 6 or 7 years younger than himself, he still wants to let himself go first. This is simply blatant contempt. It's over, it's over. I didn't expect that Naruto usually doesn't look like he's good at causing trouble, but facing Laxus at this time will actually anger people. Someone muttered secretly from behind. Everyone is worried about Naruto. Although everyone thinks that Naruto's strength is very strong, it is limited to his peers. Laxus is 6 or 7 years older than Naruto, and he is the grandson of the chairman. His strength even the old people in the guild can't compare with it, let alone the children of Naruto's generation. This is obviously bullying people. Laxus is so outrageous. The old people of the guild sighed inwardly. The girls were worried about Naruto, and they could even imagine the scene when Laxus was furious and beat Naruto. It's good enough for a child. Laxus really sucks. The girls thought indignantly, all the fire-breathing eyes were focused on Laxus. At this moment, Naruto gently pushed Urza away and said, Go to the back, I'm going to start with this guy. I'll beat him with you. Urza said firmly. No, this is my battle with him. Naruto shook his head. After hearing that, Urza had to walk away as she said, and looked at Naruto with some worry. Of course, she also knew the strength of Laxus, but she wondered if she could defeat him with Naruto's strength. At this time, Laxus couldn't help but take a shot. The magic power on his body was surging, and the lightning bolts surrounded him. A powerful momentum filled the air. Everyone couldn't help but take a step back, and their faces showed shock. Look! What a strong momentum! The magic of Laxus is so powerful. The old man in the guild was secretly shocked. This kind of magic power is stronger than himself. Naruto is really dangerous now. Even if his strength is really strong, even if the strength of Laxus is placed in the entire guild, it is estimated that there are not many opponents. 640. Easy victory. The momentum between the two continued to rise, and the power of lightning began to emerge from Laxus' body. The momentum of the whole person was raised, and everyone around was amazed. This momentum is stronger than expected. However, when everyone looked at Naruto again, they saw that he was lighthearted, and he didn't improve his aura at all. Under Laxus's aura, he seemed to be frightened and stood motionless. Naruto, come on. At this time, finally a bold girl couldn't help cheering Naruto. Humph, come on with your aura. I don't want to maim you all at once. Laxus said coldly. Naruto smiled lightly. I said you shoot first, I will never shoot first. Damn, are you still so arrogant at this point? Kid, you completely angered me. Laxuston was furious at the time, and he couldn't care about bullying the small, so he took the lead in rushing towards Naruto, punching him. Naruto's face, with a deadly arc on his fist, definitely seems to be full of power. Naruto, get out of the way. His lightning magic can't be hard attached. Someone reminded and shouted. However, Naruto still stood there motionless, until Laxus' fist came to him, then suddenly stretched out his left hand, a lightning-like punch. Hit his fist. Boom. In an instant, an extremely strong momentum emanated from the two of them, and the two fists collided, producing a shocking aftermath that spread to the surroundings. Everyone was shocked, and when they looked closely, they saw that both of them were motionless. Suddenly, a look of shock appeared on Laxus' face, and he said in shock, You can actually take my punch. This is absolutely impossible. A 10-year-old child. It is unbelievable that he can actually resist a blow that exerted 60% of his power. It seems this guy is really strong. The next moment, Laxus suddenly stepped back and rushed back, and it was a simple punch. But this time, the power surrounding the fist is directly 10%. Naruto's eyes were indifferent, looking at Laxus' rapidly approaching fist. This time he didn't stretch out his hand to resist, but flashed slightly. Just when the fist was about to hit his face, he quickly flashed to him waist. Immediately afterwards, a icy magic power suddenly poured out from Naruto's hands. The magic of ice modeling ice hockey. With an extremely violent icy air, mixed with powerful magic, it directly stuck to Laxus' belly. In an instant, the icy cold energy disappeared into his body. Caxus's body suddenly stopped there, and the expression on his face was frozen. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. What's going on? Laxus was hit by Naruto. It's still a spike. Everyone's eyes were full of incredible, and they couldn't believe the scene in front of them. After Naruto hit Laxus, he turned around and returned to Urza. It was only then that Laxus' body suddenly shook, and then he stepped back a few steps, his whole body trembling. At this moment, he felt that his blood was about to coagulate, and the strength of that icy air was simply unstoppable. Before this cold air, his magic power was simply unstoppable. This is enough to show that the strength of Naruto's magic is above his own. As long as he is willing, he can even freeze his entire body directly with this icy power. Thinking of this, his face couldn't help showing a look of horror. This is simply unbelievable. Moreover, the speed and movement of this kid are also extremely fast and precise. Make it impossible to escape. Laxus suddenly roared, and he was unwilling to accept such a result. He raised the magic power of his whole body, and a strong arc of lightning radiated from his body, and the ground of the guild hall was forced to crack open. No, Laxus, he's going to work hard. Naruto returned to Urza at this time. He thought that if Laxus saw a little bit of power, he would give up and admit defeat. He didn't expect this guy to be so impulsive. He frowned slightly. He flashed and suddenly appeared in Laxus in front of Sass. When Laxus saw this, he stretched out his hands angrily, and a strong magic of thunder gathered in his hands. He threw it at Naruto with a bang. The power of this lightning is incredible. There was a gust of wind in the hall, and everyone in the hall was forced to back away in a hurry. Moreover, Laxus did not reckon with the consequences at all. Using such a high-density magic power in the hall, if it exploded, it would directly injure others around him. Seeing that Laxus was so disregarding the overall situation, everyone's faces showed anger and shock. Urza bit Silver Kiba tightly, wishing she could rush up to help Naruto fight together. However, no one could help him at this time. The ball of lightning had already smashed into Naruto. Naruto folded his hands in front of his chest. There was a loud bang, and the thunder light was released. It was difficult for everyone to open their eyes when they saw it, and they only had time to see Naruto's figure quickly buried in the thunder and lightning. Naruto! Everyone couldn't help but exclaimed. He actually took such a powerful attack from the front. This is simply courting death. In the sound of thunder and lightning, the light finally dimmed, and everyone took a closer look, but all of a sudden they stayed there. I saw Naruto standing in front of Laxus, intact. Even the clothes on his arms didn't show any signs of electric scorch. This is simply impossible. The expression on Laxus' face has long since solidified, but he just kept mumbling, "Monster, monster." And Naruto also felt a little strange at this time. The magic power that Laxus just used was actually a very pure natural magic power. Unlike other mages, the magic power in his move just now doesn't seem to have added his own characteristics. Natural magic, for Naruto, is something that can be absorbed directly, so when Laxus' attack fell on him, he immediately noticed the strangeness and absorbed it to replenish own magic. "Your magic is a little different," Naruto said suddenly. Laxus was shocked, and the shock in his eyes became more intense.